I hope you and your loved ones are doing well. This video was made for the purpose to create conscious and awareness to the people all over the world. As this pandemic has affected us, we're all going through difficult times. We must have hope and strength. To all the doctors, nurses, and people that help others, thank you for everything. Number 10. First day I noticed something unusual was marked with a very sore throat at the top of my neck right behind my mouth. I had been having nasal congestion for about 2 days previous, so I assumed it was just a really bad case of post-nasal drip, but it was a lot more painful than allergies would normally cause. On day 2 I took my temperature and it was 100.9. I thought I was coming down with the flu and went to the doctor and got tested for flu A and B, strep, and RSV that evening, and all the tests came back negative. My lungs sounded clear this day and I wasn't experiencing any breathing difficulties. Over that week I developed myalgia, random backaches in the thoracic region, and a splitting headache at the apex of my head. At the doctor's office I had a temp of 103.1 and a blood oxygen saturation of only 89, should be 98 to 100, and was diagnosed on day 4 with atypical viral pneumonia. I'm an active teenager with no pre-existing health conditions who had never had any sort of pulmonary issues like asthma. They gave me a nebulizer treatment. Bad idea. I learned it can aerosolize the virus and expose the doctor and office staff to it if they aren't wearing N95 masks. Got a 5-day dose of azithromycin, antibiotic, and an albuterol rescue inhaler. I take 2 to 4 puffs every 4 to 6 hours to help open up my lungs. I was sent home and told to self-isolate. On day 8 I took my last dose of the antibiotic and had been feeling progressively better, although I continue to have a painful, rattly cough, headaches, sinus pressure, and a low-grade temp. On day 10 I started having high blood pressure. Highest was 143/104 with a resting pulse at 119, but my doctor suggested I don't go to the ER because they couldn't do much else different and prescribed me the steroid prednisone to reduce the inflammation in my lungs. I have been using Tylenol since day 3 to reduce my temp, but the lowest it has been is 99.3. It is now day 16 and, while I feel better in comparison to when I started, I'm still having bad headaches. My lungs continue to have low crackles all over with diminished breath sounds in the RLL. I have an inspiratory and expiratory wheeze even after taking the albuterol, and I generally feel unwell. I continue to experience really bad sinus pressure that had caused me to have diminished hearing in my right ear for 3 whole days because of fluid accumulation. Today I can hear but have an earache, but no ear infection according to the doctor. Thankfully my mother is a healthcare worker who has the equipment at home to monitor my vitals, and at this point we are just waiting for me to start getting better. I still get winded going up and down the stairs if I go quickly, and by the end of the day my chest will ache, especially along my midline. Beginning around 4 days after my first symptoms, my mother started experiencing GI issues like diarrhea, nausea that has caused gagging but not vomiting, anorexia, and also headaches, although she has not had a temp above 99.1 and is therefore expected to continue going to work. Neither of us had been formally diagnosed with a test because in my state you can only get a test if you have a confirmed exposure or have traveled internationally in the 2 weeks preceding the onset of symptoms. A patient of my mother's, with whom she was in close contact for 3 weeks before I began to get sick, had all the same symptoms I have and developed a typical pneumonia in under 24 hours and was admitted to the hospital for 4 days. He was not tested for the same reasons as I. He has since returned to my mother's facility and he is getting better but is still weak with body aches and complains daily of chest pain. My doctor believes beyond a shadow of doubt that I do have coronavirus, though, because of the quickness with which my pneumonia developed and the degree to which it seems to persist despite the treatments I have been administered. I will update this if I experience anything new. Stay safe, everyone. Update. I finished my prednisone steroid on Wednesday night, and both Thursday and Friday I experienced splitting headaches at the apex of the head, and myalgia in the thoracic and lumbar back regions, pectorals, and hamstrings. I have no reason to believe this bodily soreness is related to the exercise I'm doing, because what I have been doing is relatively light and a part of my routine. The soreness is pretty intense and required me to take NSAIDs to sleep. I've also had a stiff neck both days. Number 9. 34-year-old male from the Netherlands. Ex-smoker, smoked 21 years and quit last summer. Lungs had cleared up. Not tested because they don't do that in the Netherlands until you have to go to the ICU. I've had what is probably COVID-19 for the last month or so. At least I've never quite had this weird cluster of symptoms. Around the 16th of March I distinctly remember not feeling very well and having developed a loss of elasticity in my lungs, along with the feeling that there was stuff in the bottom of my lungs, a sort of crumpled paper sensation, if that makes sense. Felt different than my smoky lungs used to feel, which mostly felt like adult pain much higher up in the lungs and had long disappeared. This condition persisted intermittently for 2 weeks until it disappeared early this month, April, only to come back last weekend. Some days it seems to be much less prominent, only for it to come back the next day. Symptoms I've experienced until now have been feeling like I am a little out of it, that is, cannot concentrate very well. I notice this when working, which I do remotely. General malaise, like you feel when you're going to have a flu soon, but no fever, more like hypothermia. I registered 34.6 degrees Celsius at the lowest temperature measurement. Normally I am 36.5 to 37 degrees. Apparently this can also be a sign of infection. This includes getting mild chills occasionally and some very mild body aches, like I've exercised when I haven't, but nothing like I've had with influenza or colds. A lot of intense tiredness. I feel like being lazy all day, but paradoxically cannot not really sleep well. Breathing issues, the worst of which were end of March, where I had a few days where I could not catch my breath when speaking or doing things around the house. I remember describing it to my friend as feeling like I only had 1/3 of my lungs capacity left. This quickly disappeared, but a residual wheeze is present, as is a mild tickle on exhalation. Coinciding with the worst lung issues, I had sharp stabbing pains in my upper legs, kidney, abdomen area, and chest. A cough which disappeared for a while, then came back last weekend with a vengeance. Started to produce a thick mucus in my throat since then. This cough is not constant, but a few times a day I have bout of coughing like I have to clear my airways. Strange mild sore throat that comes and goes. Sometimes pain feels connected to my chest somehow. Mild but distracting burning sensation in my upper chest area, like inflammation. Mild headaches. I rarely get these normally. Diarrhea on some days. Eyes that often feel like I've been chopping onions. Overall my condition seems stable, with the worst symptoms having shown themselves end of March. I even been able to go for a couple of runs when I thought it had gone. A bit worried that the cough came back, but today it seems to be subsiding again. I hope it all wears off soon. Especially the lethargy/concentration issues bother me right now, as I am not as effective as I would like to be on the job. Started treating myself with N-acetylcysteine for the slang mucus, and regularly drink Sphanswort tea from plant matter, which is incidentally purported to kill a different strain of coronavirus in vitro, so let's hope these two have an effect and they protect me a bit from getting worse. Stay strong, everyone. Number 8. 45-year-old man, currently in isolation with the virus in the UK. I have had a very different COVID-19 experience. I am in London and I'm on day 5 of having the virus. I was commuting into the city each day by bike, so thought I was keeping safe, but I also have 2 kids. Maybe that was my undoing. It started with a headache and increased temperature, but no more challenging than a cold. The dry tickly cough started a day later. This feels nothing like flu. I have been able to moderate my symptoms with paracetamol and by staying hydrated. I have been able to work remotely, albeit not at 100%, but I'm functioning reasonably well. I have a friend also in London who is experiencing similar, manageable symptoms, but is 72 hours behind me. We should all do everything we can to limit the spread of this virus, but be aware that not all cases are debilitating. We will overcome this. Having read some of the responses on here, I wanted to clarify that I also had a stomach bug prior to the fever and sore throat. This lasted about 48 hours. With no reference to nausea being a symptom in the media, I assume this was unrelated. Thank you for sharing, guys. It seems that it requires the people to talk to work this thing out rather than the informed politicians. Now on day 10, having established that the nausea symptoms started on 13th and have not seen symptoms worsen. My temperature has normalized, but the tickly cough remains. I am continuing to self-isolate, but will need to pick my kids up tomorrow. I wanted to share this to let people know that whilst we should do all we can to stop the spread of the virus, that not every case brings flu-like symptoms and can be manageable. If this does anything to reduce the fear-induced panic buying which is making the situation harder for the most vulnerable, I would be happy. Update 3. Now on day 13, the dry cough remains but is just annoying. I am still a little lethargic, but I'm sleeping better. I feel washed out, but I'm trying to focus on staying hydrated. I seem to have escaped the really challenging symptoms, for which I am very grateful. A few people asked whether I have been tested. I have not. There is very limited testing in the UK. I self-diagnosed based on the symptoms set out above. Like everyone in the UK, we are now fully locked down, only 3 weeks late. I am trying to find any reliable information on how long I will be contagious, as I would like to sign up to help the NHS. If anyone can direct me to any useful information on this, I'd be grateful. Update 4. Now on day 17 and all symptoms have cleared. I feel slightly lethargic, but that is all. Cough has completely cleared. I am exercising again and I'm keeping hydrated. I am continuing to isolate. I would love to know how long I will remain contagious, but there is no reliable information on this. I am also looking for information on whether it is possible to contract the virus a second time. Number 7. 22-year-old male college student here tested positive for COVID-19. The first thing I have to say is that I am not a doctor. All of these are my perspectives. My family and I tested positive for COVID-19 about 2 weeks from today, Tuesday, April 14th. It started out with my father, and slowly everyone in our 5-person family, my fiancée, and her roommate, contracted the virus. To start it off, I imagine we all had the coronavirus and didn't know it yet. Once my father tested positive for COVID-19, my fiancée and I stopped seeing each other for 4 or 5 days. I started experiencing symptoms a few days in, and after 4 or 5 days of not seeing one another, so did my fiancée. The first 8 or 9 days of experiencing symptoms, it felt a lot like the flu. I had experienced a sore throat, intense headache, and fever, 101 degrees Fahrenheit, on day 1, and shortly afterward, had a lot of trouble sleeping due to chills and heavy fatigue. I couldn't really do much at all but lay on the couch, sit with my computer, and watch YouTube. I tried to do schoolwork, but I ended up experiencing heightened symptoms of chills, headache, fever, fatigue, and lack of energy, almost like walking pneumonia. Maybe 4 or 5 days in, I stopped tasting anything and lost my sense of smell. This was by far the strangest part of having coronavirus, and it was the dead giveaway, as I had never experienced anything like it before. I literally could not taste a thing, and it happened all at once. Unfortunately, our family had steak, spaghetti, wine, roast beef, and other great foods that week, and I couldn't taste a thing. I love barbecue sauce, sweet baby rays, and I cover all of my food in it. Life of a college student. I couldn't taste or smell a thing. I tried the same with chili powder. I could feel the heat and kick, but still no taste. These senses started coming back a little slower than they first came on around day 11 or 12. I didn't experience shortness of breath much except for when I went on a 0.5-mile walk and began coughing and head deeper breathing. My mother and fiancé both experienced this symptom, in which they stated that it felt like someone was pushing in on their chest and they felt like they are breathing from a straw. This is the scary symptom of COVID-19, and as far as I know, it is the main concern that doctors have. The doctors we talked to stated that if you couldn't get from your bed to the bathroom without being winded, you should go to the ER. I've seen 7 different cases of coronavirus by now and have heard of a few others in our area. Please reach out if you have any particular questions about my personal experience. Here are a few reality tips I have taken away from having coronavirus. Staying healthy. Keep 6 feet away from people that you're social distancing from. Stay at home as much as possible, and only go out in public for essential goods such as groceries and toilet paper. Good luck finding toilet paper. Amazon has proven itself to help out big time during these circumstances, although the delay on Prime items can be about a week, whereas non-Prime options have delays sometimes up to 3 or 4 weeks. Wash your hands a few times a day or after touching things like door handles and water fountains in public places. Keep your hands away from your face before washing. If you're living with someone who tested positive, isolate as much as possible, but live like you have COVID. You likely have it at this point. For those who test positive, everyone experiences different symptoms. They've said that if you have COVID-19, you're probably coughing. I haven't coughed much at all, but my parents have. My youngest brother hasn't experienced any symptoms except for the fact that he can't smell anything. The doctors stated that there's no way to speed up the recovery process other than to rest and give your body time to heal. They stated that taking Tylenol would help relieve symptoms. I tried working for 2 hours on day 13, and my body relapsed. Stay at home. If you suspect that you have COVID and haven't been tested, you can wait 4 or 5 days to see if symptoms arise. I know there are local testing centers set up all around us. We didn't find out until 7 days after getting tested. I believe I'm on day 15 or 16 and I'm still in the process of recovering. My father has recovered fully after about 20 days, and my youngest brother is still not experiencing symptoms other than loss of smell. Please give your body time to rest even if you'd rather be working. Again, I'm not a doctor, but you can reach out if you have any questions on my personal experience. Stay healthy, y'all. Number 6. 31-year-old female who is asthmatic and semi-immunocompromised. I'm also a first-time mom with twin 8-month preemie-old boys. I was traveling from out of state visiting family and came home late on March 23rd. Woke up in the middle of the night with a cough. Had a dry throat the previous week, like I just needed a drink from being thirsty, kinda dry, so I didn't think anything of it. Woke up on March 24th wheezing and coughing like I couldn't catch my breath. I live in the south where there was like 4 inches of pollen, so I assumed allergies. My inhaler and allergy meds didn't work during the day, so I figured cold flu meds at night might kick this thing out. Nope. My temperature bounced from 98.3 to 99.6 Fahrenheit. I had a raging migraine that normal treatments didn't relieve. I just kept getting worse. I was so tired and my body ached like the flu. On March 27th I did the tail duck with my primary care drive, who ordered me to get tested for COVID-19 by drive-through. Nanny took my boys in case I had this plague, as my boys are preemies and just got over RSV not long ago. I went on March 31st and got tested. I was still feeling horrible, nausea, headache, coughing, wheezing, tight chest, fatigue, body aches, chills, lightheaded, dizzy, and no fever were my symptoms. Hit the ER on April 2nd and they gave me cough meds and a new inhaler and albuterol for the nebulizer after telling them it didn't help. My lungs were clear, so no signs of pneumonia. So just a recap. So, lightheaded and dizzy, I can't get up without passing out. Migraine headache so bad I want to throw up. Aches and chills like the flu, no fever. Can't breathe or catch my breath, and coughing so much it's making the migraine headache worse. And so damn tired I can't function. Got a call from the hospital on April 4th that I was positive for COVID-19. Told me to continue to isolate, and since I was technically 2 weeks into isolation, I should be cleared to be free by April 6 if I was symptom-free for 72 hours without meds helping. April 6 I ended up back in the ER as I couldn't breathe and it was getting worse. I informed them I was plague positive and they put me in an isolated room. X-ray was clear for pneumonia but still had a few minor spots. All blood work was clear. Gave me heavy-duty cough meds and sent me home with antibiotics after I was coughing so hard for 35 minutes straight I threw out my back. Yeah, that sucks when you're old, by the way. Haha, it's now April 15th, and I was doing better the last few days. It got really bad last night. Sore throat, super tight chest, felt like I was inhaling ice. Inhaler is useful for about 5 to 10 minutes for temporary relief. Nebulizer is a joke. Cough meds help a little bit. Cough drops, propping myself up to sleep, hot tea, and lots of Gatorade and water are helping. It's been 3 weeks and I'm still in the middle of this. This is no joke. It sucks. My husband is isolated with me and thankfully is a combat veteran. He's vaccinated against the world. He has no symptoms. They won't even test him since I'm plague positive. So he's running all the errands for meds and groceries. He could be a carrier and not know it. When I get out of isolation, I don't know if I'll still be positive, or if I'm still contagious. This plague is so unknown and so detrimental. Please wash your hands and stay inside. Spoil rotten your essential workers. They're putting their lives on the line for us. If you do go out, wear gloves and a mask. Something is better than nothing. Just use common sense and social distance, please. Hubby probably is asymptomatic and wears a mask when he goes out and has minimal contact. Most shopping has been curbside or pickup, otherwise we're stuck in quarantine. Boys were with the nanny for the 2 weeks of quarantine so I didn't infect them. I got them back and then started feeling sick again. My mom is helping me with them and my husband is self-isolating away from me. I'm in South Carolina. Our government is absolutely useless and only last week did they put shutdown orders in place. Yeah. South Carolina is useless in general. I call it the plague because it's funny and highly contagious and no one knows who, what, when, where, why, how about COVID-19, and information about this virus is all over the map, literally and figuratively. No, it's not the actual plague. I'm a history major and a history nerd. Honestly, y'all should read about the treatments and cures for the plague of the Elizabethan era. You'll find the part about the chicken hilarious. I don't know why they gave me antibiotics, the Z-Pack azithromycin, but I guess doctors are trying whatever. I'm a mild case, not dying. I don't need to be in the hospital taking up valuable space for someone who may need it more than I. If I'm dying, I'll go to the hospital. Until then, I'll be fine. So can someone just pass me the room so I can disinfect my insides? Sheesh. Number 5. A 20-year-old who has tested positive for COVID-19. I was not going to share my story, but now that I see others are reporting very different symptoms than mine, I feel it's important to tell everyone my experience. February 29th, I woke up this day in agony. My head was pounding, my ears throbbing, and it felt as if my throat was on fire. My body ached, I had chills, and I had a fever of 100.2. I took over-the-counter anti-inflammatories and stayed in bed the entire day. March 1st, I woke up feeling better, but with the growing concerns in Italy, I decided to see a doctor. The doctor saw me and said I had a cold. I proceeded with my day. At this point, I had begun to lose hearing in my left ear. I figured it was congestion. Still, I had no cough. March 2nd, hearing in both ears was significantly less. I could feel phlegm in the back of my throat, but once again, I thought it was just a cold, as I'd been told by a professional. As Italy was starting to become a place of concern, our program urged us to return home. March 3rd, my last day in Italy, I still couldn't hear, and at this point I lost all ability to taste and smell, yet I did not have a runny nose or cough. I had a headache constantly during the day, which I just treated with Tylenol. I left the next morning to return to America. March 4th, this is the day I look back on and get scared. I flew home, and not a single person asked where I had been. Not even at customs. They didn't blink an eye at me. I had layovers in large cities. Again, there was no doubt in my mind that I didn't have the virus. March 5th through 13th, as we were told, I stayed in self-quarantine during these days. I had contact with only 2 people. No symptoms were present that the CDC warned us about. I had a wet cough, and my hearing, taste, and smell finally returned. March 13th, yes, I got tested on Friday the 13th. Coincidence? I was not planning on being tested. However, members of my family work in healthcare and wanted to be sure before returning to work. We had to ask to be tested. They refused until we asked repeatedly. March 14th again, and no symptoms, a slight remaining cough, but nothing of concern, I thought. Until I got the call that I was positive for COVID-19. My jaw dropped. How was I positive? I didn't have the symptoms on the news. I got cleared by a doctor, and no one cared at customs. I had come from a high-risk country. I guess why I'm telling you all of this is because what they are telling you are symptoms are not all symptoms. And you do not have to have the symptoms to be positive. The only symptom I had that was similar was a fever. I don't know how I got infected. The CDC worker who I report my temperature to every day has no idea how it's spread. Which is why everyone should be staying indoors. I am remaining in quarantine until I'm tested negative twice. I have been in my house since March 5th. I know many of you have spring breaks, trips, work, and activities planned. But I want you to understand many individuals my age are not showing symptoms. I know we joke and laugh about not having this virus. But this is not a joke anymore. Please cancel your trips. I am completely healthy right now, but that doesn't mean I'm cleared. And the same could be true of you. So please stay indoors. Be safe and smart. Limit your contact with individuals, because this is going to get worse before it gets better. To those of you in the same situation as me, I wish you all a speedy recovery and to stay healthy. Drink fluids and wash your hands. Please remember, just because you are not showing symptoms does not mean you do not have it. Take care. Number 4. I have tested positive on Sunday, so I think I can say about my experience now that it's worsened quite a bit. I'm 17, so it may not be the same as others have experienced. As I understand, it is something that affects everyone differently depending on their immune system, age, etc. I went to a concert a week before symptoms showed. At the concert there was a man coughing constantly in front of me, so I can guess who I got it from. I was wearing an N95 mask, but had no eye cover, so I'm guessing that's how I caught it. I can't be sure, as the next day in school my friend was horribly coughing, who is also in self-isolation. The day before I started feeling symptoms, I had a horrible stomach ache and was showing stomach bug symptoms. Edit, I forgot, but my mom just reminded me that I started to feel very tired the Thursday and Friday prior to the Saturday that I felt ill, which isn't something the media mentions. That night, I was walking up my stairs and, despite not feeling dizzy, I kept losing balance and falling quite a lot. I just blamed it on tiredness as a way not to worry my mother, but I have to admit, I found it quite peculiar. The next day, I had a very clammy feeling everywhere, with a higher temperature than normal in the beginnings of a dry cough. The night before I had also experienced some chest pains. As the days went by, I felt very weak and had some back pains as well. Nothing really changed except from the cough getting worse and last night where I had overwhelming anxiety and felt very uncomfortable. I was finding it hard to breathe and was weeping all over the place. Not the prettiest sight. This morning, I woke up feeling like I couldn't breathe easier than other days. I'm wearing a mask around the house now to avoid any spreading to my mom who hasn't shown any symptoms. Edit, I forgot to mention, I have been eating lots and lots, however have lost 2 kilograms in the last couple days, so if you do come into contact with this, eat as much as possible. My throat feels horrible now and I have very dry skin as well as all the other symptoms I've mentioned. If anything changes, I'll update. Update, next day. My symptoms haven't severed today and no more weight has been lost, luckily. Due to my mom and one of the comments explaining it could be dehydration, I have now realized it was. It's still a bit difficult to breathe, however it is understandable due to the nature of the virus. If anything gets worse, I'll be sure to call 111, and if you are living in the UK with prominent symptoms, make sure to call 111 too. The cough hasn't progressed but is still here and everything seems relatively the same except from that I feel less weak, so this is an improvement. Thank you for all the lovely comments and recommendations. Stay safe and healthy. Update, I'm improving, lots. To anyone experiencing these symptoms, don't be worried and panic like I did, you will pull through. From what I'm experiencing now, the virus will probably take its peak around the 3rd or 4th day you show symptoms, and this was quite scary for me. However, it's totally natural for your lungs to hurt a bit and to find it a little harder to breathe. Obviously, if you're finding it incredibly hard, it may be an emergency, in which case do not listen to me. I'm on my 8th day now and my energy has fully recovered. My cough is still here but much less, therefore I am still isolating away from my mom who hasn't shown symptoms yet. And when I breathe in, my lung can still hurt a bit, so I definitely just rest until it's all over. Thank you for all the support and I hope this can help in any way. It does. Have a lovely self-isolation time everyone, and don't get too bored if you're working studying from home because of this. Some comments requested a recovery update, so here it is. I have finally recovered. It is currently Tuesday, March 24th and I started showing symptoms, fever and cough, on Sunday, March 15th, so it's been a while now. My energy has come back completely now, but there are still some complications. My cough isn't persistent but it is still here, as well as my lung capacity having depleted a bit. The lung capacity part is something I think I'll have to build up again by exercising, but I didn't realize a virus could actually do something like this. Whether you're young or old, this will affect you in some way with some longer lasting effects than just a simple cold or flu. I really recommend self-isolation for everyone, as this is horrible whether or not you're in risk groups. I understand getting food is hard, but keeping your immune system strong at the moment is the best thing we can all do. It may be inevitable that many of us will get this virus, but if you are a healthy person, it is not inevitable that it will harm you deeply if we do the right things to prevent that. Drink lots, eat what you can, and even if it's not a lot, just eat as healthily as possible. Rest well and enjoy quarantine to the best of your ability. I understand it's incredibly boring, but it's better than the latter. Make sure we're all washing our hands and helping ourselves and others where we can. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my experience, and I hope it helps. This is extremely long now, which is what I wanted to avoid, but as well as all the symptoms, the media doesn't really explain that your symptoms can go and come back. Now that I have recovered, I still get little outbursts of a cough and dry throat. I would definitely recommend self-isolating for a couple extra days after recovery just in case symptoms arise again. Number 3. Sick February 22nd, 2020. I thought I was fine and just had a cold, so continued about my life. By February 28th, I couldn't get out of bed. A week later I thought I had recovered, but again quickly declined. My heart rate while reclined only goes below 80 when I'm asleep. When I walk around it's always over 100 and the highest it's gone has been 180. I'm very dizzy often and struggle to catch my breath. I can't walk too far on my own. By March 9th I was desperately in pain and was given antibiotics, inhalers, and told to take Tylenol. By March 14th I was in the hospital and tested on March 15th. March 18th, the hospital set me up at home with a nebulizer to help me breathe. Today, March 19th, has been the worst day by far. 4 hours ago I got my results. COVID-19 negative. Something else has to be going around, or something was off with the test. I know a handful of other people with very similar stories, but were unable to get tested. And yes, feel free to recommend what I should do next. I'm terrified with no potential diagnosis. Edit, I was just contacted by my doctor and told that she believes my results were a false negative. This post has been getting a bunch of shares recently, and since it went semi-viral on Facebook, I continue to post regular updates. For everyone who's curious, I have copied the updates and posted them below. Edit, after a few days of getting better, last night, March 24th, I took a turn for the worse and my case has been confirmed COVID-19. I have an infectious disease doctor working on my case and will be starting a new set of treatment. I appreciate the responses from everyone and want to recognize the prayers and love from the triathlon community and beyond. To keep my Facebook profile personal, I will not be adding strangers to my Facebook profile. However, you may follow my recovery on Instagram @CautusVents, and I have also gotten a lot of questions about COVID and created a Facebook group to support one another through this time. The link is on my profile. I will likely be out of commission during this new set of meds, but please keep the prayers coming. Stay safe and healthy and bless everyone having to work to keep our community running. March 30th, edit, definitely an emotional and very difficult day. Went back to the hospital due to my doctor's concerns of a ruptured collapsed lung. My motor skills have decreased, inability to walk, stuttering, that may be due to lack of oxygen or side effects of medication. Luckily, I was in the clear, but it was a huge reality check and will be leading to further changes in my care. Keep up the fight to everyone out there with this disease and to everyone else. Thank you for staying home. April 2nd, edit, prayer is very real. Blood tests indicate that I am improving and I will slowly be taken off various medications to help reduce side effects. It's looking like a downhill battle here on out. My blood oxygen levels are still considered dangerous, so right now it's a balance of finding the right amount of medication, reducing side effects, and getting rid of this disease. This all feels nothing short of a miracle, but the physical pain and exhaustion and difficulty breathing are all still present, so I have to remind myself to be thankful. My doctor is predicting 2 more weeks until recovery. April 4th, edit, after a comprehensive set of blood tests, I have also been diagnosed with EBV, most commonly reported as mono. This could mean anything from a scientific perspective. But what it might also mean is that this is why I have gotten so sick from COVID-19. As an otherwise very healthy person, I could have become immunocompromised by EBV, allowing COVID-19 to take over so intensely while hiding the symptoms of EBV. There are a lot of unknowns here, and I'm really wishing I could be working in an infectious disease lab right now. April 10th, edit, my lungs and heart have been cleared for any imminent or permanent damage. I am finally feeling better and have a lung specialist working with me on my recovery. Bad news is that lung recovery will take months. but good news is that I'll get there. Number 2. Asthma, which is a high-risk underlying condition. This is my experience. Monday, March 9th, I woke up in the morning and coughed up blood. First time that's ever happened to me. Tuesday, March 10th and Wednesday, March 11th, I thought I was having bad allergies. I had shortness of breath that did not feel like asthma. It was because my lungs were inflamed. At this point, my neck back was hurting so bad and I thought I slept on it wrong. However, usually I can take a muscle relaxer for it and I'm fine. I took muscle relaxers non-stop for 3 days, and it did nothing for the back pain. By Thursday, March 12th, Friday, March 13th, I was having hot flashes, which was the beginning of my fever. Thursday night I was so tired I fell asleep on the wrong end of my bed with the lights on, not yet knowing what was happening with my body. Saturday, March 14th, I woke up at 4 a.m. and I knew I had the virus. I had fluid in my lower lungs and I was wheezing badly. I went to the emergency room where they did diagnose me as presumptive positive. My temp was about 99.6 when I got tested. They gave me lung steroids to help with the beginning phase of my pneumonia. I spent Sunday, March 15th in bed. The next day, March 16th, on Monday, my fever started kicking in high. My lungs started clearing up, but it hurt every time I breathed in. This was giving me a lot of anxiety even though I knew my oxygen levels were fine. The lung pain continued the entire time I've been sick. The back pain went away. At this point, I also started having bad stomach pain around this time. I started having diarrhea, which lasted a few days. Over the following 3 to 4 days, my fever was at 102 constantly. I took Tylenol 4 or 5 times a day and I was still running a fever. Apparently, because of the way your body works, you run fevers more at night because there's less cortisol in your blood and your body starts to fight the infection at night. At night my fever spiked to 103. Those 3 days with that fever were the worst. I was convinced I was dying. I got in the routine of taking a shower to regulate my body temperature. This did help me to cool off and helped my anxiety. I was not eating for these few days. I had to force myself to eat soup and an occasional snack. I also want to mention that it felt and still feels like my lungs and throat were swollen. I am on steroids for the inflammation in my throat and lungs plus chest mucus. As of March 20th, my fever started to break. It's March 22 and my lungs are a bit wheezy and inflamed. I'm a bit stuffy and it still hurts to breathe, but I am no longer facing the threat of pneumonia. I have been without a fever for the last 2 or 3 days. I want to mention that my breathing symptoms started to improve once I was gargling with hot salt water and taking a sip of alcohol to kill the bacteria in my throat once in a while. My throat was very inflamed and I think that contributed to the feeling of not being able to breathe. Once I started to work on getting my throat cleared out, my symptoms eased up. I spray everything with Lysol and 409. Disinfect everything I come in contact with. Only one other person in my family has symptoms and they are relatively mild. If I could say anything, it would be that this is a very long flu. If you get sick and you feel like you can't breathe, go to the ER right away. This way they can nip the symptoms in the bud and stop it from progressing. Early prevention is so key here. Mind you, I am asthmatic as I said, so this is more for at-risk people, but still applies to everyone. I'm telling y'all, though, those few nights with the high fevers were absolute suffering. Anxiety, paranoia, delusional. Feeling ill. Thinking I'm gonna die. I went back to the hospital a second time. They gave me antibiotics to see if it would help clear the mucus from my lungs. If you get sick, remember that the fever-induced anxiety is temporary and it won't kill you. I struggled with my mental health during those few days. I would hate to know others would go through that feeling. Definitely try the shower thing I mentioned for fevers. If you do get sick, try the salt water rinse and alcohol for your throat. and stock up on a lot of Tylenol because, as I said, I was taking Tylenol 5 times a day when my illness peaked. I also bought liquid Tylenol Flu for all the other symptoms. Hydrate, rest, make sure you eat, and just suck it up and be prepared. It's gonna suck. But if you are proactive with your health and get help right away, you can stop it from progressing. Sorry if this is long. I just wanted to give a lot of details so you guys know what to expect. I am in recovery now, but by no means recovered, and I have been sick for 13 days or more now. I expect to feel like myself in another week or two. I also want to add that if you smoke cigs, you need to stop during the time you are sick. I smoke a bit of 420, which isn't too bad. I cut back a lot, but I know if I still smoked cigs like I did in college, I probably would have been admitted to the hospital. Edit, March 24th. The hospital called me today to tell me my COVID test was negative. However, based on my symptoms, they want me to retest, as they believe this is a false negative. My flu also came back negative, so this is why they believe it is COVID. As of right now, I am going to manage at home. I don't want to risk going out to the hospital again and getting re-exposed to germs. I'm still stuffy and inflamed. Still taking lung steroids every day, and I'm now 2 weeks into this. Any other time I had asthma issues, I was on steroids for 1 week. I can see now I will most likely be on them for about 4 to 6 weeks. This is chronic flu pneumonia. Update, March 30th. I am healthy again and thankful to be here by God's grace, my doctors and my own intuition. The doctors prescribed me yet another round of steroids that was slightly different from prednisone and that seemed to do the trick, along with the azithromycin antibiotics. I am still taking my asthma inhalers and steroids medication during the recovery phase. Another update, April 16th, I am back on another round of antibiotics. My chest has still not completely cleared out from this virus. While this is frustrating, I am not displaying any other symptoms. I have no reason to believe I am reinfected. I suspect that the chest congestion is just taking a very long time to clear. It's been about 6 weeks since I got sick. Some people like me do end up having a longer version of this illness. I was lucky enough to catch my symptoms early enough to stop myself from getting pneumonia. So while I avoided any major complications, I am still experiencing the chronic version of this illness. Final thoughts. The frontline treatment they are doing for this disease varies person to person. I personally believe that they should be giving lung steroids to everyone for this virus. Not just people with lung conditions and asthma. Even if you do not have asthma but develop symptoms of pneumonia fluid in your lungs, consult with your doctor about prednisone and antibiotics. Stay healthy, guys. Much peace to all of you in these crazy times. Number 1. Unlike a lot of people you're hearing from on here, I have actually tested positive for COVID-19. I was most likely exposed on March 3rd, became ill about a week later, and just received my official test results today, March 17th. Coronavirus feels like the most devastating flu I have ever had. Intense bouts of fever, alternating with the kind of chills that, even with 3 sweaters on, make your teeth chatter uncontrollably. I'm lucky, relatively speaking, because my temperature never went higher than 102 degrees Fahrenheit, but even then, it felt like my body was burning up. Plus, a general feeling in my head that I can only describe as heavy or fluish that makes every movement and activity feel like a massive chore. A few days later, I developed a very annoying dry cough. But again, I am lucky because there have been no chest pains or breathing problems, which would be a reason to be hospitalized. My appetite has been nearly non-existent. I am normally a big eater, and it's only been in the past couple days that I've been able to make myself eat anything. Even then, it feels very gross, and I can only consume very small amounts. Fortunately, I've been able to manage my symptoms just by taking Tylenol, and my condition appears to be improving. The worst part, though, is being stuck at home, but feeling too sick and exhausted to actually do anything except sit around and cough. As I said, I'm one of the lucky ones. According to the doctors, I will most likely be fine in another week. But trust me, people, this virus is real. You do not want it. And you do not want to be the one who gave it to someone else. Chances are, many of you are carrying it already, even if you don't have any symptoms. I most likely had it for at least a week before ever feeling sick. Stay home and wash your damn hands. Edit, I'm sure a lot of people are wondering how I was able to get tested. I found out that one of the ushers at a Broadway show I had attended tested positive for the virus. Because of this potentially direct exposure, combined with the fact that I had all the symptoms and tested negative for flu, I was okayed for the COVID-19 test. I don't think this is right, but at least, here in New York City, that is how they are doing it. Also, I am 47 years old, in decent physical shape with no pre-existing health conditions. Edit 2. One more time, for the tinfoil hat crowd, I tested negative for both types of influenza. I do not have the flu, trust me, I wish that was all I had right now. But it's not. I have absolutely nothing to gain by telling my story, except to educate others about exactly what I've been going through. A lot of you are obviously scared by what's happening in the world right now, and that's understandable. But believing that your armchair assessment of my symptoms is somehow more valid than actual scientific CDC tests conducted by a qualified doctor is ridiculous, and it's very dangerous to others. The fact that you somehow think you know better doesn't make it true. So stop it. You sound like a bunch of whining babies. Put your big boy pants on and start treating this like the real issue that it is, before you literally become another statistic. Edit 3, Dear World. Today, March 21st, for the first time in weeks, I woke up with zero fever or flu symptoms. This, by the way, is exactly the timeline predicted by the doctors who tested me at City MD last week. I still have very slight remnants of the cough, so I will continue to self-quarantine as a precaution, but otherwise, all things considered, I'm feeling pretty damn good today. If you are currently sick with this illness, I am here to tell you that, for most of us, it will pass. It won't be pretty, but it will pass. If you are concerned about catching it, you should be. Practice hygiene and self-quarantine, and get your information from reputable, non-commercial sources, such as the CDC, Coronavirus Disease 2019, COVID-19, if you feel like you are getting sick, especially if you have a combination of fever, cough, and chest pains or breathing issues, contact a medical professional. Trust me, I know how scary it can feel, but it's much better for you and your community to know what's going on and be able to do something about it. If we hadn't visited a doctor when we did, we would not have caught my wife's pneumonia in time, and I might not be telling such a happy story right now. We can get through this together, as Americans and as human beings. Take care of yourselves, look out for each other, and listen to the scientists and the healthcare professionals. They are working overtime for all of us right now, and they deserve all our compassion and respect. Thanks for all the well wishes and votes of confidence during this very difficult time. Love from New York City, Leon. Edit 4. Today, March 29th, was the first day I woke up with no cough. Which means that, in another 3 days, I will hopefully be considered non-contagious. However, as this virus continues to spread, especially here in New York City, I want to reiterate, I am one of the lucky ones. My sickness never progressed to the level of respiratory distress. There are many more who are not so lucky. Since my last post, I have lost one friend to COVID-19, and know 3 more who are currently hospitalized. I have heard firsthand from seasoned, veteran nurses who cry on their way to work each morning because the death rate at their job is up to 1 person per hour. and the bodies are literally piling up in trailers. This pandemic is real, and it is deadly. I appreciate all the well-wishing and congratulations I have received on here. But please do not interpret my own personal experience as a sign that everything will be okay, or there is nothing to worry about. This virus can strike anyone, and it can kill fast, and without warning. I am eternally grateful that my wife and I were not hit hard, but that doesn't mean that many others won't be. Wherever you are, please stay isolated whenever possible, and take all precautions with hygiene and personal contact. As I said before, we can get through this, but we have to be smart about it, and take it seriously. Thanks again for all the kind words. Leon. Welcome to my channel. Hope you enjoyed. Please like, share, and subscribe and turn on the bell notification button to receive the latest videos. Thank you.